Hey, Matrix Live! It's that time of the month again. We're going to do some demos. We've got a whole bunch of stuff. Valere is going to demo Riot X video calling. Michael and VDH are going to talk about notifications. Notifications actually big demand. There's a whole new room list design you might have seen in Riot Web Labs. Travis is going to demo that. Dave and Nad are going to talk about E2E. And Christian is going to talk about Modular SAML support. So there's a whole load of stuff. I'm going to hand over to Valere, although I can actually see Benoit, who is also working on this. So I don't know who's going to present, but let's see something about Riot X video calls.
Yeah, I'm going to call Benoit. So we'll go there. Tell me when you can see my screen. I'm trying a new thing to share my Android device.
I can never see screens, but I don't know
I also cannot see the screen.
Okay.
Nobody can see it?
Seems no.
No.
Oh, why? Oh, okay. I think it's a pep cac.
There we go.
Okay. So
we have it now.
Riot X room list. So now if you open a direct message room, you will have on the top the two new icons to start a video call or a voice call. So I will try to call Benoit. So here I'm sending an invite. Let's hope Benoit is there up. He's very young, as you can see. So we get the connection going. So we are WebRTC exchanging candidates. Hello. So you can see the quality of the screen. It's a HD call. I'm going to show you some options. So here I can switch between different sound options. I move to the speaker. I can turn the HD if the connection is bad. Right, pretty much the usual option. I can mute, unmute, change the video. And I have also now the picture-in-picture. So I move to the chat and I need to talk to Benoit. So I can do it. So no issue. It's going on up to the home. I can go back to the screen, of course. Switch back. I can, let's say I kill the app. The call is still going on. Oh, I removed the notification because I didn't want you to be annoyed by it. Let me see if it's still working. Yep, it's still there. You can see the call is still on. So that's it for the demo.
That is awesome.
Cool.
Great.
The UI is looking very, very sexy with all the funky overlays and stuff.
That's actually super cool. It's going to be bringing Riot X back up to par. All right. So we've got notifications demo. I've got Michael and VDH listed. Who's gonna talk?
Michael, are you ready to kick off, and I'll follow up later. Michael?
Yeah. Hello.
Right.
Can you see my screen?
Not so much.
Not yet. Well, the icon looks like a monitor.
And plus, your monitor appears to be speaking, which is quite impressive.
It's really weird. My preview looks fine. Might try rejoin this from a browser. I'm trying the desktop app, and it's not treating me too well.
Do we want to switch?
Yeah, we can go on to the next. Okay, so Travis, are you ready for your presentation?
Yeah, let's try it. I haven't tested any of this, so we're going to just double check to make sure that I grab the right screen.
That's exactly what I'd expect from somebody who's about to demo a whole new feature. No testing.
Yeah, exactly. So, in theory, that's the right screen with no secrets.
We see you in your fiberglass. Oh, there we go. We can see you now.
Perfect. Okay, so this is the new room list. It's entirely designed by actual people that know what they're doing and not by developers, which is probably the most important part of it. But yeah, there's, you still have your menu up here. You can get access to a lot of your settings, stuff like that. Your archived rooms are previously called historical is going to end up in here. That's still a work in progress. There's quite a few things that are still a work in progress with this, so not all the buttons actually work. But yeah, you have all of your invites, you have all your rooms, you can get message previews if you want. There's even presence notification or presence indicators there if that's something that you're looking for. And of course, this is all tall global, so you can change the order of how the rooms work, whether or not you want to see unread rooms first, whether or not you like the previews or not, stuff like that. And of course, if you just need to get access to some of your other rooms, they're also down here. And of course, it now allows you to resize as needed, which also comes with room list scrolling. So if we expand some of these other sections, except system alerts, apparently, we're just going to ignore that. But yeah, you can scroll the room list, which is probably the biggest change, I would say, where previously you weren't able to scroll the room list, and it was very, very awkward at times, but now, of course, you can. But yeah, something that's hard to sort of show on the screen here is the entire thing has been rewritten from the ground up. So all of the algorithms are completely different. The thing that's actually driving all of this to make it alphabetical or sorted by activity or unread first, that sort of stuff, that's all completely new code. The React SDK has an entirely new set of components for all of this, which is also why it's missing a bunch of features. But hopefully in the coming weeks here, we'll have a lot more feature implementation done and a lot more stability to it. But it is on riot.am/develop if people want to try it. I don't recommend using nightly at this time just because it's changing every day fairly rapidly. So using a web browser is a bit preferred.
Cool. I've been trying it out on my matrix.org account, and it definitely works. I've been able to use it and keep testing it. So yeah, cool. I actually didn't know what features were missing. What's the most obvious missing feature?
So there's quite a few. So the breadcrumbs, for instance, is missing quite a lot of usability stuff. There's no tooltips. There's no scrolling. They're just a bunch of icons right now. The archive for rooms is probably also pretty obvious because it literally does nothing. Yeah, we're hoping to also get, being able to click the badge again to go to your first unread room, and a few other subtle things that people might not have realized were missing.
Ah, cool. I think I just got very lucky because I actually didn't miss any of that stuff, so that's pretty lucky. All right, cool. Thank you, Travis. Michael, are you back?
Yeah, let's try it again. All right, any luck with you guys seeing that?
It's incredibly crisp.
Is it actually visible? I tried to zoom in a bit.
It's both visible and crisp.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. I thought you were being a bit sarcastic. Okay, so... okay, first I'm going to start off with a quick reminder of how awful our notifications are today. Big matrix of options. It's perfect for anyone who wants, fully granular things, but it's awful for everyone. Redesign brings a lot more simplicity. All the options are nicely grouped, and you don't get 100 different choices for each one. But not only that, we finally fixed the unread counts, where, as you may have noticed, this account is set to never notify me. So that's the master push rule is set to true. Yet, if I message myself from another window, hopefully today, come on. I blame my home server, it's very, very slow. There we go. I have a dot here, which denotes a count. If I go into my options and go always show numbers, that's magically turned into a count. Previously, this wasn't possible. We weren't able to show unread counts if you have push disabled. And a lot of people were like, well, what if I just want counts, but I don't want to have my phone vibrate every single time? So now this is going to be possible. And also, we have new room settings for notifications with similar sort of simplicity going on. And new and improved custom sounds with new and improved animations. Yeah. Most of the UI is not yet connected and wired up, but it is on labs for people to play with, and it is basically just being improved every single day. And it pretty fundamentally ties in with the new room list stuff. So basically, just make sure you have them both enabled. And I think now over to Rich to explain the underlying difficulties of this.
From the outside, it looks pretty.
Yeah, it looks great. I'm impressed. I hadn't seen it in the current incarnation. So I guess over to Rich for the slides.
Yeah, I was going to try and explain a little bit about what push rules are and how they work. A lot of this notifications project has been driven by, the underlying technology is the push rules that we use in Matrix. So I was going to explain a bit about what they are and how they work and why they're a bit annoying. So let me share my screen. That one, can you see that?
Yes.
Maybe? You can see a thing that says push rules. Great.
Push rules is aerial.
Yes, it's an aerial. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk about what push rules are. And basically, it's a list of rules that lives on the server. And for each event that comes into the server, we check off against the push rules and they decide how we handle them. And the main thing they decide is whether we send a push to people's phones. For those that don't know, push is the thing that makes a mobile client wake up and show you a little notification. So it's a thing we send to phones. They also control some other things. They control highlighting, which is whether the event gets shown in red, or Riot shows it in red. Other clients might do something different with it. And sound, which is whether you get a little audible bing when the message arrives. No rocket science there particularly. So yeah, on the server we have this. We have these rules. Each rule has the conditions which decide whether it's going to match against a given event. And when the event arrives, we go through the whole list of rules, looking at each rule in turn until we find a match. And when we find a match, we apply the actions that are in the rule, and then we stop. And part of the complication is actually that rule is split in, that list is split into 5 separate sublists, which we casually call the override rules, which can kind of match anything, but apply first. And the content rules, which look at the content in an event. The room rules, which look at the room ID on an event. Sender rules, which match specific senders. And then at the end, we have some other catch-all rules. So, yeah, an example. We know that cats are evil. So the first rule we might have is anything in the cat's room, we ignore all events. And another rule that we might add might be if we're super interested in Shelties, looking at anyone in particular, Eric, then we might have a binger on Sheltie. So whenever the event contains the word Sheltie, we send a push to my phone and we make it go bing and we make it go red because it's super exciting. So whenever you sign up with an account, you get a default set of rules. They're defined in the Matrix spec. And we try and start out with everyone having a plausible set of defaults. And there are things like surprisingly, we don't have a default rule that brings everyone wears a Sheltie in the room, but not everyone wants that apparently. But we do have a rule that says if the rule contains your username, send a push. We do have a rule that says if the message is in a room that only has 2 people in, then that's probably a direct message room, and we should send a push, an audible push, but there's nothing to highlight there. And the reason they're in the spec is that individual Matrix clients can turn those rules on and off, so they need to know what the rules are going to match against. So you might decide that actually I don't want to get a bing every time someone sends a message in a DM room. So you can tell your client to tell the server to make that rule not noisy. So that's a little about how they work. And I feel like throughout this project, I've been saying to Nad constantly, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, but we can't do this. And I was going to try and explain a bit about all the stuff that sounds easy, but actually just falls apart. So one of the things we were looking at doing was having it possible to override the settings in a given room so that you wouldn't get a bing when someone mentions one of your keywords that you've set up. And basically the reason for that is that because we only have each event only matches one rule, it only matches the first rule you come to, we can't have separate rules that say, hey, here are the keywords, and then here are the actions we do when there's a keyword match. So if you want to have different settings for keywords in different rooms, you end up with a big matrix of rules, sort of one for each keyword for each room, and you rapidly get an exponential blow up, which is complete disaster to maintain. And you can do workarounds and workarounds, but you rapidly tie yourself in a knot with this very static list of rules. Another example is, if you want to do anything, any sort of complicated matching on events, and this example isn't even particularly complicated, but it's something we wanted to match, which is, suppose you want to look for events that have displayable bodies, but aren't edits of previous events. It sounds super simple, but there's just no way to express that in the current push rule system. We started thinking about doing custom conditions to work around that, and again, it got pretty hairy pretty quickly. One more major complication of push rules is because these run on the server and the server can't see the content of messages, we basically end up just having to push every encrypted message to clients without knowing anything about the encrypted message, let the client figure it out itself. Finally, the things that we're changing in the push rule system as part of this project, Michael mentioned the unread counts. When we first started out, we thought that this was going to be a great match for push rules because we knew that we wanted a sort of fairly complex list of conditions in which the unread count would go up. We thought, hey, we've got that in push rules. Turns out that because it is a bit complex, but more importantly, because it starts interacting with whether we do notifications, it just got really, really hairy to manage through push rules. We realized that the whole thing would be much simpler and easier and no less flexible if we just implemented a separate mechanism for implementing them on the server. And otherwise, it's not really fundamental changes to push rules, but there's a whole bunch of work involved in figuring out how those UI knobs that Michael just demonstrated are going to fit into the push rule system, and which rules you turn on and off, and what sort of rules you need to add and remove for each of those switches. So that's about it.
Yeah, Valere, I have a question. I mean, there is also a scope in that we can use for the push rules. Can it be used, for example, for the keyword problem? Define a scope, and the scope is the room ID.
Yeah, maybe. So at the moment we only have one scope, which is global. And the idea of scope was that it would be used to have device-specific push rules. Honestly, by the time we'd sort of been around the loop a few times on trying to cram them into global push rules, we realized that probably the unread count was easier solved just with a different system.
Just asking because I've seen the scope and we are not using it. It's adding a bit of complexity.
Yeah, I'm not sure it would have solved any problems. Might have. Anyone else?
Thank
I've
you,
shocked everyone.
No, that was awesome. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Tech Guy.
Okay.
Or Michael, if that is your real name. Ben, are you still alive? Or
he goes by many names? Yeah, sorry, I'm still connected. So E2E onboarding. I've got Dave and Nad listed. I should say thank you, Rich.
I think Nad's laptop.
Dave or Nad?
Melted.
Oh, of course, Nad. Yeah.
I can. I think I can use audio. But maybe I could just sort of preface the stuff that Dave's about to show. So we shipped, and just maybe to explain the problems that we're trying to solve, basically. So we shipped encryption, E2E by default. I can't even remember how long ago. Weeks to months, thereabouts. That kind of timeline. And along with that, in order to secure keys which are stored with your account data on your home server, we let people put in a passphrase different to their account password to keep all those things secret and to safeguard all of your secrets from your home server admins. And it turns out that asking users to manage an account password as well as this kind of second password that's sort of similar to the account password, not quite the same, has been a little bit hard for people to grok and people to understand. So we're just basically doing a bunch of changes to try and simplify the whole system so that it works way more predictably and more like a password manager or something like that, where you can optionally enter passphrases if you want, and otherwise download computer-generated keys to use to encrypt your secrets and stuff like that. So that's the kind of preface and what we're aiming to solve, basically.
Yeah, I basically just sort of wanted to. Well, I was going to show you, take you through the three iterations of the design of this system, essentially. So yeah, I just wanted to. Thank you for that explanation, Nad, and I probably want to make sure. Obviously, this is all your design, so I want to take credit for this in any way, even though I'm demoing it. But I'm hoping that, like, if there's any rationale behind the design and why everything is like it is, then you will be able to chime in and explain to everybody why it is the way it is. Try and share my screen. Here we go. Here we go. Right. So this is what it looks like today on Riot X/develop. Probably, if you're watching this, you haven't probably created a Matrix account recently. But this is what it looks like. Let's do this. This is on real live Matrix. So do a capture. And you get this. You've just entered your password, so now you're prompted for another recovery password. And you can enter one. Or you've got this advanced disclosure here, and you can just use a recovery key. But the first thing users see is this recovery passphrase, and they're hit with, like, why is this? Why am I being asked for another recovery passphrase? I've just entered a password. We sort of we went through a couple of design iterations on this months and months ago, and there was no good alternative, and we eventually decided that maybe this is an example of being too close to the problem, but we decided that this was what we were going to do, and we were going to have recovery passphrases were the answer, but it confused everybody, basically. So we decided that that's probably not the way to go. So we redesigned it. This never went live. This was a different experiment that I wrote and when that designed. So I register here. That doesn't work. Here we go. Right. So I've just entered my password and I'm just being create a recovery key. Right. Great. Okay. I know what one of those is. It's a different thing to my passphrase. You've got this screen here, and it's very clear that I need to save it some way. I need to either download it, copy it, and until I've done one of those things, I can't go any further. Okay, I'll copy it, and then we're in. Okay, great. But then we sort of started thinking, well, actually, we've got this recovery key, and some people are going to want this passphrase. Like, a passphrase is more convenient. The security trade-off is that a recovery key is literally almost impossible to break, whereas a passphrase can be brute force if you pick a weak one. So there are security trade-offs between the two. So it's not entirely obvious that you would always want to use a recovery key. So we went back to the drawing board again. And here we are on, this is the most recent iteration. Excuse me. Okay. Right, enter my username and password and register. Here we go. Right, so now I've got a very clear choice between whether I want to the system to generate a security key for me, or whether I want it to enter my own passphrase. And it's sort of the same as where we started out, technically, but it looks a lot different, and it's presented to the user in a very different way. So I'm a technical user. I want to use a passphrase. I know what I'm doing, so I'm going to pick that one. There we go. And once I've done that, I still get a security key. This is exactly so. If I picked to generate a security key, I would have got straight to this key, to this screen, except that the continue button wouldn't have been enabled because I have entered a passphrase already. I'm allowed to continue without saving this recovery key, so it is optional. I don't need to actually save it anywhere. I can click continue, and I set up keys, and I'm in. And that is a whirlwind tour, basically. Hopefully that's been useful.
One of the important points, Dave, is probably that it's not going to be prompted necessarily just after you registered, right? Yes.
That's so. The second stage of this is splitting up, setting cross signing, and setting up recovery keys, whereby we'll be setting up cross signing almost in most situations as soon as you log in. So the cross signing is ready, and you can verify other users, you can verify other devices, but then you only actually need this passphrase or recovery key for storing your account secrets on the server. So it's actually going to be more like key backup is now. It's going to be more closely linked to key backup. So you will have you'll back up your Megon keys, your message history keys, along with your account keys, and you'll do either neither or both.
So the really cool thing, which will be a demo for another day, but once we get there, which will maybe be next month's demo, who knows, will be that basically if I'm a user, I don't need to worry about any of this because I don't need to do it when I start. And instead I can just scan QR codes every time I get a new device and everything magically works. And then if at some point I decide that I do want to back up my keys in case I throw all my devices down a well, my house gets on fire or whatever, I can just opt into that as a backup mechanism. But actually for the most non-technical users, all they have to do to securely have encrypted conversations available everywhere is just scan a code every time they get a new device, and that's it. So it should be really frictionless once we get there, which will be next month's demo, hopefully.
Looks awesome.
It would probably be good to propose that when you log out of a device, for example.
We already do, which is good news.
Okay, good.
Cool, thank you, Dave and Nad. Yeah, I know that's been a pain point for some less technical friends. So that's actually really cool that so much thought has been put onto that. Actually, it's a pain point for everybody, but yeah, less technical folks tend to be more vulnerable. All right, finally, we've got a video from Christian on the state of modular SAML support. So let's hit it.
Hello, I'll be presenting the new authentication integrations for modular hosts. Last month I presented the CAS authentication integration, and this month we released two new ones, the OpenID Connect, which requires you to input an issuer, a client ID, a client secret that we don't store in the database, and then optional endpoints that you can specify, but if you have auto discovery on, you don't need that. And the user attribute that will determine your user name and the display name attribute. To show this in action, I prepared one host that has the integration set up to our new vector SSO server, and that should allow me to log in. Yeah, because I already logged in earlier during testing, I didn't need to log in again. So that's the beauty of single sign-on with OpenID. We also do have this for Google SAML. That's another new one. We have a setup guide of what steps you need to do inside of the admin Google console to set up all of this, and it will give you a metadata XML, and you paste the contents of that in here, and that allows you to sign into your modular host with Google. We did set up a shared account for this. The passwords for that are in Passport, so if you need a SAML server for testing, a Google SAML server, we do have that now. It's part of the modular team. You might need to ask for access if you need that. That's our two new authentication integrations for modular host this month.
Cool. All right. Thank you for watching. Thanks for watching Matrix Live. Thank you everybody who did the demos. See you next week.
Thanks for DJing, Ben. Bye.